Okay, Emelye, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's so great to finally actually sit down and talk about things.
Well, especially the things that we're going to talk about today. I think it's going to be a very hot topic and a one very applicable to a lot of listeners. So just for that, Emelye, could you just give us a brief intro into sort of who you are and what it is that you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, of course. So obviously I am Emelye. That is correct. So I was a competitive CrossFit athlete, literally up until about, July last year. So very, very recently, which is when I stopped competing kind of unintentionally because I got injured. I actually got injured over a year ago now in between the open and quarterfinals, tearing many tendons and things in my shoulder. My background is hugely varied. Came into CrossFit in my mid to late 20s, and I'm now in my mid 30s. So I kind of came into it not late, but not recently. I've been doing it about 8 years or so. I still coach it, but my direction where I've gone has had to take a little bit of a different track because unfortunately the injury has resulted in me kind of having a few struggles coming out of a competitive sport with my mental and physical health. So direction's gone slightly differently, still PTing, coaching, but training looks extremely different now to how it did this time last year. So in a nutshell.
I mean, that must have been I know from someone who also got injured and then had an extended break from sort of competitive training and then tried to come back to competitive training and realized, okay, actually having that much time off makes a huge difference in this kind of sport that we're in. You then have to work twice as hard to kind of rebuild that ground you've lost. And I also had that decision to make of I was never that good anyway, but to make that decision to leave it behind, that must have been a difficult decision for you in terms of your identity and in terms of the work that you'd put in up to that point.
I think the decision has only really come to me in the last couple of weeks or so.
Right.
I was working with a highly regarded coach up until semi-finals, and then we kind of took a bit of a back step. And I kind of freewheeled for a while after semi-final. So July last year, freewheeled for a while I got my shoulder and stuff sorted, or tried to get it sorted. But then when we realized the extent of the damage, I had to kind of come completely off programming and main training. So I'm now working with a new coach, and up until literally the last couple of weeks where I said to him, hey, I want to back off my training a bit, change direction. We were still training with the intention that I wanted to be fit enough, base level, strong enough. So if I went, right, okay, I want to do this comp, let's start to peak, we could go push that big button and we could go.
Yeah.
But the more time I've had away, and the more my health and mental health specifically, can't remember, I'm drunk, has started to struggle, the more I've realized that actually perhaps competitive sport under such a hard spotlight, and with the medical condition that I'm currently under investigation for also, is this decision potentially being taken out of my hands. This a decision that isn't just me going, hey, I just can't be bothered to train that hard anymore. It's a bit like hard work. But there's just many things that have gone into this, I guess, revelation that I've had. It hasn't been a decision where I've just decided I don't really want to do it anymore. It's been a real struggle, So the loss of identity is a proper shell shock. How do you fill that time from competitive training? That's one of the main.
Yeah, I mean, the time is obviously a big thing, because it's a lot of hours in the day, isn't it, to devote to that. But it's not just that; it's then your recovery protocols and your sleep and your nutrition. They kind of all hang on the same hat, don't they? And I guess that's why it's so key. Sorry, go on.
Everything that you do has a purpose towards this training and athleticism. So
yeah, Absolutely. And I guess that's why it's so key to find other things to hang your hat on. And I mean, from that, you said that you're still coaching in your different boxes, you're still sort of PTing people. I guess as you said, this decision's kind of only come to light in the last few weeks. And so for you, is that shift of identity been around like, okay, well, I am all of these other things. I'm not just Emelye, the CrossFit athlete, I'm also Emelye, the woman, and Emelye, the coach and the PT and all the rest of it. That must have been important for you to find. And I guess that's still a journey you're going through now.
Completely. I wrote a blog post a couple of years ago for Ben Kuma, actually. And it was all about identifying my identity and coming to those struggles with the fact that I was, originally I was Emelye the actress. Then I was Emelye the anorexic, and then I was Emelye the autistic, and then I was Emelye the athlete. But actually, I've always been all of those things. Even when in recovery, you still have a lot of the thoughts pertaining to different things.
Yeah.
But you are an accumulation of all your different character traits. They are not, unique of one another. They are all one and the same, that big melting pot of things. And I've often talked and worked with a mindset coach about the different caps that you wear. So I have my coaching cap and my athletic cap and my Emelye cap and my sister cap, whatever. But actually, and I'd always change before a performance then. Before a competition, I'd change into my athlete shoes and become the athlete. But actually, you are all of those things at the same time, but it's just which side of you have to lean into at certain points. But I think when you take one away so in such a stark manner, I use my training from 6 hours a day to between 2 and 3. I'm kind of gradually weaning it down, about 2 to 3 a day. And suddenly you have to really sit with yourself and say, okay, right, who am I just as me without all these labels? Who am I? What is my character? Where am I going with this? And that is, it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Well, I mean, particularly like, as someone who is effectively, if we consider this not just as a human, as you said, with these different caps that you hang your hat on and these different identities that you have, that, as you said, they are all part of you. It's just which one you're leaning into in a particular time. Taking a huge one away is a big thing, particularly for someone who, if we talk about personal branding and social media, which is a huge card in today's, currency, if you've built up this big platform of someone following like Emelye the athlete, you've got to kind of think, well, actually, are they following me as a person, or are they following me because of my CrossFit footage? And then how can I lean into that and still be, of use to this community that I've built? Because I found that, as I changed from the CrossFit athlete to more of like the nutrition coach, particularly going down the disordered eating path I am now, I still now I have the same amount of people following me as I do unfollowing me every single week because of that shift of audience. It's very interesting.
Do you know what you've hit on a very poignant topic that I discussed in length yesterday with my my quasi manager about this and which direction I'm going to go in, because I want to have a huge shift in that.
Yeah.
And so this was another reason that I kind of reached out to you and said, hey, I think we've got some parallels here. Because a lot of people did start following me when I was kind of in my heyday. A lot of people started following me when I first started, of course, and who will always be great supporters, I'm sure, and, great friends. But a lot of people, my audience is 60% men and 40% women. And of course, you think back to, 2018 and the heyday, booty shorts and bra tops and lots of wall ball shots. It's going to be like that, isn't it? And unfortunately, I think specifically female athletes do get used as marketing tools for brands.
Oh yeah. Let's not beat around the bush.
they say that, they say that sells, but actually it's not. Often when you're selling a product, it often isn't the people who you're marketing that sort of an image to that end up buying the product, because let's face it, that bloke in America that follows me because I had a good bum, he's not going to buy that bra that I'm wearing. It's going to be the girl that thinks, oh, I fancy wearing that because she looks cool in it. I want to look cool in it. But anyway, I digress. So, I've stepping away from fitness, I'm like, Christ, how do I use this tool that I've got? Because again, like I said, I built it up because sponsors pay. That's how, as a competitive athlete, when you're training 6-7 hours a day,
Yeah,
you
how
can't
else do you?
work 8 hours a day. So
Yeah.
how do you make this financially viable? Sponsors say, hey, here's some cash for looking good selling our stuff.
Yeah.
So how do I then make the I did lose, as a result of stepping back from fitness, getting injured, getting sick, I did lose my primary sponsor, which was my primary source of income.
Yeah, of course. And then that's another big hit to everything, isn't it? That's the thing. Social media is a powerful currency. And like outside the scope of this podcast, probably, like building enough of a personal brand audience, you can kind of shift the way you like to. And I think your story of where you are now and how you've led into this, and why that, why you now believe the things that you believe, or now you train the way you train. And particularly as we go into your history of sort of disordered eating, as well as like image concerns, particularly the crossover between sort of actress to CrossFit athlete as well, because we've got both a parallel there as well. That's powerful storytelling. And the thing is that people will get behind that in terms of your journey of now this journey of sort of health and post athlete life and where that takes you. But talk to me about that, because you said obviously there was a huge hit after the end of the CrossFit career, but I know that for you, finding CrossFit in the first place was almost a good recovery tool from that anorexic identity. So could you take us sort of back to that journey and how that led into that?
Yeah, so I was first hospitalized with anorexia and bulimia when I was 18. And I had a spell, so kind of like a real kind of snapshot. I had a spell in a general hospital because I was medically very unwell, as well as being kind of in the depths of the eating disorder. I flushed all my electrolytes out, basically. So I had a kind of a minor heart failure. I was on like support machines, being fed through a tube in my nose for a very long time, to try and get my body into a position where it was just kind of like chemically stable. I was then transferred to a secure unit in Poole. I was there for, I think, a couple of months, and then I was pulled out of there. And then it's strange. The memory of everything is so vague. There's big like pockets of information missing that I have to get my mum to kind of fill in. I was then transferred from there to the Priory in Southampton, and where I had a very long stay. I came out of care prematurely because I didn't want to be in there anymore. Naturally, unfortunately, eating disorders by their very nature are competitive, and you want to be the best at the eating disorder. You also don't really want to see that there's anything wrong with you, and having the eating disorder is very safe because it is your identity. And recovery is very frightening, as bizarre as it sounds. So as soon as I was able to, I discharged myself, and I moved to Northamptonshire with my then fiance. Fast forward many years and many things, and I'm well, in the sense of I am a stable weight, healthy weight. I was about 25, I think, when it started again. I came off my final tour that I ended up doing of shows and theatre. I felt really out of shape, so I started training in the gym innocently at the time. Spotted a girl who looked fantastic. She was in bodybuilding. I thought, I want to look like her. So I started training more and more and more and more and more and more and more, and one thing after another started to spiral. I then had an unsavory relationship with a personal trainer in the gym that I was training with. I won't bother to bother you with. Had my heart broken. Left that gym immediately, and the only other gym in the town was CrossFit gym. So I walked in there and I said, apparently I'm really going to love what you do here. And they went, yeah, cool, let's show you around. Next morning I did my first workout. It was a hero workout, Glenn, for anyone who cares. And laying in a pool of my own sweat at the end of it, thinking these people are insane. They're incredible, seeing what they were doing with their bodies and how they moved. And I'd never seen anything like it. Like, I used to push myself in, like the Les Mills classes, which are awesome, of course, and spin classes and really push myself. And I'd never really kind of felt that connection with anybody else in the room who also trained with that kind of mentality. And I suddenly felt seen, and I felt like I'd found my people, you know, and that was it. And after, I think with when you joined, you had like a health check, a nutrition check with the main coach there, who's still a fantastic friend of mine. And he said very frankly, he said, if you want to do well, if you want to train hard and enjoy it, he said, you've got to start fueling your body. You've got to start looking after yourself more. And I think hearing it externally and then seeing a binary process that I could follow and measure as a way of it, but that became the obsession. From just counting the calories and trying to get small, I wanted to get strong. And like you said, for a very long time, you know, is what saved me out of my last relapse.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, I have been quote unquote well, which obviously brings us on to something else we wanted to discuss, is like, was becoming an athlete and tracking my macros as opposed to tracking just my calories.
Mm-hmm.
Did it then just become another way of controlling that disordered eating? And I think the whole time, that's exactly what has been the underlying thing. I would always put every single competition I ever did, and I haven't admitted this to anybody, every competition I ever did, I have always prioritized the calorie content on a lower side, as opposed to thinking actually having the extra is going to benefit me more in this. I've always had a harder fixation on what's going in, trying to limit it to what my performance was going to be when I got on that floor every single time, which is really hard to stomach when I think that is potentially what may have caused my injury in the first place.
Well, we can always speculate, can't we? But obviously unhelpful to think maybe that way, because we can spiral, can't we, into thoughts and start to really ruminate about those, you know, maybe that was it, maybe it was this, maybe it was X. And actually, you know, it's happened now and we're in the future. But it wasn't, that was an interesting realization on your part. And I was thinking it as well, actually, was the whole, like, you know, did going from one eating disorder of anorexia into then a world of competitive CrossFit, of like counting macros and things, just lead from one to another? Potentially. Because there's always that sense, as you said, with eating disorders, there's that competitive nature of like, you want to be the best at it. And I know from studying a lot of it around anorexia, of like the sense of control, of like, if there's no control in other aspects, then this is the thing that I can control, and I can control my body and I can control the way that I look because of the way that I eat. And that becomes like a sense of power, particularly because food is something that a lot of people don't, you know, they struggle with their relationship with food in different ways, maybe in overeating. So this is a sense of like, well, I can do it this way.
Totally. It's all about control. You're spot on there. Yeah.
And so, and I did find that interesting then, for you potentially, because I know that you've had a relapse recently, and with the kind of deck of cards falling down from that competitive CrossFit identity, it's almost then exposing that, isn't it? Of like, maybe that was a failsafe for you. And then without that, it's kind of readdressing those things.
Yeah, it's very comfortable to go back to the things that make you feel safe.
Yeah.
And it's very comfortable to sit with that eating disorder because, you know, it is familiarity, and that sense of the disorientation you get from it as well. It takes away from the pain and any other form of suffering. Sorry about that.
All good.
I don't know how to turn that off. The messages coming in. Sorry, that sounds really throwing me. It does, the pain of it and the disorientation you get from the actions of anorexic behavior. I'm trying to make sure I'm really careful about what I say, so I'm not going to be triggering to anybody else. I'm so hyper aware of that.
Yeah, of course.
Anorexic behaviors do make you feel extremely spacey and extremely disorientated, and that switches off a lot of emotions, and you become very zombie-like. So you don't find anything funny, you don't find anything sad. Well, you do, but you don't. Your brain kind of computes the emotion, but it doesn't texturize it. And Greg Everett said something really incredible about emotion. He says it gives our experiences texture. And I think that's it. Everything just becomes completely bland and flat. And that's how you want it to be, because actually that texture is painful. So yeah. And the suffering that you feel becomes very comfortable. And yeah, I don't know what else to say really on that one.
Well, no, I mean, it's exploring that feeling, isn't it? Because I found it interesting of talking prior before we got on air, you know, talking about your previous history of being in an acting career and then choosing fitness instead. You know, there's that difference between like, well, actually, rather than my acting being judged, now you felt physically judged, both in terms of performance and in terms of aesthetics. You know, you're talking that you spoke there about sponsorships, and you're aware that, you know, followers equal sponsorship, which equals cash to train. And you were aware of the social media currency of like, well, sex sells. So now I physically need to look a certain way. And then there's that, as you said, like, okay, well, maybe I was still on the lower end of my calories because you were probably subconscious about your body image because of the need to fulfill the sponsorship quota to be able to train. So it's almost this like horrific cycle of like, I need to make sure that I look good, but I'm also trying to perform well. And I know that my life is on this platform, which is an aesthetic platform.
Yeah, massively so. It is a dangerous spiral. You know, I think there is a fantastic shift happening at the moment with this body positivity movement, which is fantastic. But I do think there's a lot of projection in there and performative body positivity.
I'd agree.
Yeah, that people don't necessarily intrinsically feel these things, but because extrinsically they're getting the clicks, the likes, the shares, the validation from it, they're keeping it up. But actually, internally, they're perpetuating the situation because they're not really addressing what they really feel about themselves. But also the fact that I, you know, entered a relapse that I'm, you know, literally just coming out of, to the point of I was only discharged from outpatients unit last week because the criteria was different. And I'm still in therapy at the moment. Like that's how fresh this is. I've completely lost track of what I was saying, Johnny. I'm so sorry.
All good. Well, we were talking about obviously body image positivity and the fact that there's a good swing towards it at the minute, which was helping obviously after being in such a sort of body image focused sport that is CrossFit.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yes. The obviously I've having a sponsor, you know, as big as can I say the sponsor name?
I doubt they'll listen to this podcast, so probably.
Probably having a sponsor as big as My Protein, who initially took me on when I was, you know, in my heyday, really, to break further into the CrossFit market. Everything was very much about how I looked physically, and not just about how I performed. You know, even though they said it was about performance, it wasn't. It not really. The lack of confidence that has come with this relapse and how my body now looks and how it has changed and all the comments has made me withdraw massively from putting myself on my social media, which has been, you know, the primary cause of that loss as well and the drop. So the fact that pulling back from it has resulted in a drop, me looking a different way has resulted in a drop. It kind of does put you into this washing machine even further. But then as a juxtaposition to that, whenever I do put my body on Instagram, which, you know, is, as people would describe how it has looked at points, a sick body, to people who understand disordered eating and who don't just look at me as being a shredded athlete, people can look at me and go, something's not right here. You know, they would describe it as my body looking sick, poorly sick, not sick as in like sick meat. That when people then do comment on, they're saying, oh my God, no, you look amazing. Or you'd never know there was anything wrong with you. Or how did you get so shredded? Like, what's your secret? That validates that voice in your head. You know, and not commenting on anybody's body is better than making any comment whatsoever, in my opinion.
Yeah, perfectly said. I'd agree. Particularly because like I've gone through the stages of being a coach who was very fascinated on like getting people lean and performing well, and then going as someone who has been through that side of like definite bulimia, of over exercising and over counting calories and all the rest of it, to this, to where I am now, you know, noticing a lot of CrossFit people who are not in any need to lose weight at all, you know, paying for nutrition help in order to get leaner, because that's what they see the CrossFit athletes being in. And then, you know, you've got certain companies out there who I won't name, because I really don't need a lawsuit on my hands. Not that they'd listen to this, but, you know, you've got certain companies out there who advertise very strict, you know, meal plan protocols, timing protocols, app protocols, and all the rest of it. And all of these things aren't necessarily triggering, but they can be. And actually this in the CrossFit athlete space, because you've got people who are genetically very, very strong and who genetically may have lower body fat than other people, but then you've also got people who do very disordered things to get there. You know, they will count their macros religiously. They will like literally make their entire life there. And it's, you know, this sense of over control, which is what you turn to after anorexia. You know, some people will call it discipline, but where's the line? You know, where's the line between discipline and disordered? And actually, is every athlete crossing that line? Are they blurring that line? You know, what athletes are actually okay with that? Because actually, I know from me, you know, if you look at pictures of me in 2015, you'd be like, bloody hell, like Johnny was shredded. And now, you know, if today I was to take my top off in a CrossFit gym, despite still performing pretty well, like I'd be called chubby, I'd be called fat. And that was my history, which is why I went so deep into the world of macros and nutrition and things, because I was so sick of having that identity. Whereas actually, as you said, like people could be lean, but the way that they've got there is not healthy at all. But because you validate them by clicking that like button and saying, oh, wow, you're so shredded, you look great, blah, blah, fish cake. It's like, it's perpetuating that cycle rather than, you know, why don't we just compliment each other on our attributes as a person and our values?
Completely agree with you. Completely. And can we really say that counting our macros to the nth degree, so planning to make sure we have quote unquote room to eat something at the end,
Yeah.
is that actually being in control, or is that being out of control? And we say it because we're the ones making the decision, but actually it's diet culture making the decision for us.
Of course it is. Yeah. And it's like, oh, I have to stick to these macros every day, rather than like, oh, I'm hungrier today than I am yesterday. What's going on? Or I'm not hungry today, but I've got to eat these macros. And it's like, and it's why I changed my business around, rather than help, you know, my whole tagline was, you know, get lean without eating clean, and, you know, like helping CrossFitters get lean and perform well. But all I was seeing was CrossFitters coming to me that had normal body fat percentages being like, I want to get leaner. And I'm being like, why? And it's why I just completely changed my business to helping people with disordered eating habits and helping people with bad relationships with food, or people who are actually, you know, overweight and want to change their body fat for health purposes. It's like, that's why I created the company. And like, that's why I've pushed to, because I had to escape from that perpetuating diet culture of like, let's get as lean as physically fucking possible.
Because it's not healthy at all as well. Like I was going to put a post out soon. I've been waiting for the right time to kind of come clean about what's going on and really say to people, look, this is a situation. This is where I'm going to be going. But there was something I was going to say about, yes, okay, so this is different in the sense of, you know, relapse of an eating disorder and getting ultra lean. There is a stark difference, I suppose, between the sickness and like obsession.
Yeah.
But yes, I lost fat or weight, but I also lost my period. I lost my coach. I lost clients. I lost sponsors. I've lost money. I've lost hair. I've lost relationships. I've lost countless nights of sleep. I've lost my sex drive. I've lost so many things. I've lost enjoyment. I've lost the desire to do anything. I've lost all of my self-confidence. I've lost teeth. I've lost the ability for my digestive system to form a proper fucking stool. Like, I don't know, I'm holding my hands like this, like I'm holding my poo. I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny, but at all. That's not what I'm laughing at. But it's, you lose so much more when you lose your body fat. It's not just the strength that I've lost. I can barely clean a 70-kilo bar.
Mm.
That was, I'd do that. I'd snatch it for reps. You know, people don't realize the cost of these things, and actually one day you think you're in control, and then suddenly you're not. It's in control of you, and it can be that fast, and you don't realize it until it's too late often. And I just really just implore people to not comment on people's bodies regardless, because people aren't always in the gym to get leaner. That's not always everyone's purpose. Not everybody's joy in life is wanting to get thin or shredded or lean, and not health. Being lean doesn't constitute good health.
No.
Somebody said to me the other day, oh yeah, it really annoys me when personal trainers don't look like they train. And I'm just like, that's none of your business. Also, does a brain surgeon look like he needs brain surgery? Do you think he's had personal experience of that? Like, personal experience doesn't always equal the ability to do something, but also physicality doesn't always represent what's going on internally. And I think that is where people get very, very confused. But I digress once more.
No, not at all. I think that's also just where we need to question our biases around body image and how much of an opinion that has of a person. And also it's that filter to think commenting on someone's body is never okay to do. And actually it's, as someone who works as a nutritionist and does talk about fat loss for people who desire that as a goal, or who potentially need that as a goal for health, because as you said, being leaner doesn't always equal health, but there's obviously a correlation between body fat levels and healthy behaviors, and there's you can be bigger and healthier because the behaviors are there, but then if the behaviors aren't there, then we also need to talk about things. But for me, like, I've obviously marketed services in the past with before and after photos, and I don't do that anymore. I don't market that way. I've got testimonials that have them because I just have not had the time to update any of my website collateral at all, because I'm very fortunate that I'm very busy. But, social media wise, I'll talk much more about the transformative approaches of their mindset and their relationship with food and their behaviors, because that's a much more important conversation than how the person looks.
Completely. Absolutely. Completely. I read something earlier today as well that said, food won't hurt you, but your eating disorder will.
Yeah.
That's for both ends of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And I think as well, when people do comment on people's bodies, if somebody says to me, oh, you're looking really, really shredded, all it does is say, you're doing well, keep going. Like that little keep going. But equally, if somebody goes, oh, I'd never know that, you had a problem, I'd never know from looking at you, the pipes up and goes, see, not thin enough, not shredded enough, you big fat. And it's like having a bully in your head the whole time.
Yeah, of course.
And it's exhausting trying to fight that.
I know.
But also, I think the only nuance, obviously there's nuances to everything. So the nuance to that is, if I'm working with a personal training client and their goal is specifically body fat loss, because they that way, and actually they're in a position where for themselves, that fat loss means a lot to them. Whatever people want to lose weight for, of course it's valid. And if somebody wants to go on a diet and lose fat, that is completely okay. I don't want to put an emphasis on it being gravitational force of body weight, because that constitutes so many different things.
Yeah.
If you're a weightlifter, muscle density if you're a weightlifter, organ thickness if you're an endurance athlete, like you get bigger heart, right? Obviously these are kind of smaller, but if that person really wants to lose body fat, and actually for their health particularly, losing a bit of body fat is going to make them healthier.
Yeah.
They say, do you think I have, or have I think when you specifically know that's that person's goal, and it is a healthy, non-disordered goal, that's the only time I think it is appropriate to make a comment about their weight.
I would agree. And
sensitive thing. Oh my gosh.
Extremely. That's the thing. It is extremely sensitive, which is why you do need to know all the context.
Yeah.
And also, it's important, that we clarify there are behaviors with. I mean, it's why I positioned my company much more towards sort of intuitive and mindful eating, because I was like, look, rigidly controlling macros or following a rigid meal plan or over exercising just to burn calories or freaking out because of changes of routine or having to eat on the go or because someone else has cooked your meal or all these things, like they're all different factors of slightly disordered eating habits. And we can be really healthy and also change our body composition without actually entering into any of those things. If we focus on eating when we're hungry and stopping when we're satisfied, if we focus on distinguishing between hunger and emotional eating, if we focus on having a relatively rounded life so that we've got a lot of different identities, we've got a lot of different things going on in our lives, if we focus on stress management and sleep and exercising for enjoyment and for physical, for physical performance, our body shapes will change without us needing to go down that line, which is why I'm very, very adamant that, I'm very adamant now with who I work with and what we do for those reasons. Because, some people will harp on and say they don't necessarily need to lead to disordered eating, but it's a fine line because when does that line get crossed?
It's not always the physiological changes that you see first. It's everything that you can't see inside somebody's head, of course.
Exactly.
That's then also where the problem with things like intuitive eating come in. Because intuitively, what's my intuition telling me at the moment? I don't have the ability to eat intuitively. So on like the flip side of it, I've gone to my coach and I've said, tell me what's the bare minimum you want me to have every day. And I'm going to try and get that in. So we've gone for an approach where I'm trying really hard to hit what he wants me to have every single day as a bare minimum before I'm allowed to train the next day. So if I keep my end of the bargain, but to try and repair that, just things like hunger signals, they switch off, when it comes to eating disorders. And also, I don't think we can have this conversation without talking about mental hunger and what happens when you come out of disordered eating and you start eating again. The fear that somebody who is struggling with anorexia and or bulimia or any kind of disordered eating goes through is that you restrict yourself so severely for days and days and weeks and months and sometimes even years on end that sometimes when you do sit down to eat, suddenly your brain goes, holy crap, she's eating, guys, she's eating. So I've got all lots of little people around my body, is how I imagine it. They go, quick, keep her hungry. Is there more food around? Is there more food? There's more food. Brilliant. There's more food. Right. Keep her going. Bring it in. We don't know when the next famine's going to be. Make her keep eating. And before you know it, you've realized that you can't switch it off. You'll be physically full, but my brain is still hungry.
Well,
and it's
go on.
It's absolutely terrifying.
Well, because have you read the actual book, Intuitive Eating? It's free on Audible, so I would download it, because effectively you're talking about Last Supper eating, because it's the eating before the next famine, because of that history of going through it. And as you said, your hunger signals have kind of turned off because you've gotten used to not using them. Yeah. And it's going through that rediscovery now of, as you said, your intuition isn't going to help you now, but it's rediscovering what it would have done as a toddler, as a child, when you would have, eaten when hungry and stopped when satisfied, and you would have had the food that you truly desired. And there was no sort of pre-connotations over sort of good versus bad or calories and thinness and all the rest of it. It was just a case of food because I'm a growing toddler. And it's a shame that we move further away from that, and we do that because of our parents' relationships with food, with our school, with our teachers, with our peers. And then as we get older, I mean, it's interesting for me, Emelye, as well, your background of being an actress into an athlete, because I remember being at drama school and I was too big, I was too muscular. I should stop weight training, go on a diet, get better at dance and look more like the other boys so that I could get into a chorus part, and my professional musical theatre career kind of didn't really get off the ground. Like, I got a couple of pro jobs, luckily, as like leading men, because that was the only thing I could really get cast at. But no professional touring company or West End show would have me, because I was young, I was under experienced and wouldn't fit into a chorus, and wasn't good enough to be a leading man at the age of 22 because I hadn't had that much pro training. You know, it's 10 years on. I've had a singing lesson every month for the last 10 years. And so dramatically very different performer. Yeah. But obviously back then, you know, when your agent kicks you out because you haven't got a job and you're like, oh, fuck, well, the whole time I felt judged about my body. And I'm sure you probably did too, even though acting should be a performance-based career. It's not at all.
You're so right. You're so right. And the reason, so my eating disorder journey started as bulimia, believe it or not. I was, so trigger warning for anyone who suffers with bulimia at the moment or is struggling. I first purged when I was 9 because of a remark that a boy made when I had a piece of spaghetti in the school hall, flicked up and hit my nose, and he made a joke about being a pig, a greedy pig. And it was, for me at that age, it was kind of a one-off, and then it became a one-off here and there. But 9 is such a tender age. Mm-hmm. And it went on and off for a while. I was always doing the extra exercise in my bedroom at night because I knew that I had a show coming up and I wanted a flat tummy like the other girls. Mm-hmm. Unbeknownst to me, I'm going through a diagnosis for something at the moment called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which my doctor says it's unfathomable that I don't have it. Same as my osteo, same as my physio. It's pretty much, we're just waiting for like a rheumatologist like report to come through, which is a connective tissue disorder, which creates lots of excess skin, hyper soft skin, loads of extra connective tissue to the point of where my skin will stretch.
Right. All right. Yeah.
See what I mean? That's
yeah.
Right. But that's why I have a diastasis recti.
Right.
Hernia, my joints sublux all the time. But it's also why I have so much excess skin all over my body, including my tummy.
Yeah.
I would forever be obsessed with this at such a tiny age, and a comment made by a family member in that you shouldn't have all that excess at your age. You're only a child. You should have a nice tight tummy. Yeah, I probably should. So the bulimia kept on going. And then as soon as I was in my audition process for a Saturday school into main school at Guildford School of Acting, the deputy head of the musical theatre course said to me, if you don't stop what you're doing to your vocal cords and your esophagus, said, you will never be a singer, Emelye. Said, we need to stop this now. Said, I want to help you. And my brain went, okay, what's the solution? Oh. And I just, trigger warning, I just stopped eating.
Right.
So.
It was a case of, all right, I need to stop purging because it's affecting my vocal folds. And then it led to something else to control that. Yeah. You know, totally understandable. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because like, I really hope that we move into a generation where we understand the implications of commenting on people's physique, even as a young age. And we teach our children not to do it. You know, don't tease people at school because of X, Y, Z. And as parents and teachers and things, we can bring up a new generation of people that don't comment about people's relationships with food or their body because of the implications it may have. And you can use, you know, different generation all you want. And it was. But look at all of us who have these things. You know, look at how much damage social media does to people's relationships with bodies, themselves, and food. Like, we're actually probably that's the battle of today, I think, is the battle of health and fitness.
And how we talk about ourselves in front of people, and
our
own food and comments you make about people. You know, I'd forever have people. I'd have a big appetite, because that's a misconception as well with eating disorders, that people don't like food.
Yeah,
I feel very ashamed to say that I like food. I like flavors.
Yeah,
Everybody likes food. We're humans. When you're in the depths of an eating disorder, all you think about and all you dream about is food.
Yeah.
Or like every thought I have, I wake up, first thing I think about is food, and then I avoid it like the plague. But even saying things like, you know, are you going to eat all that? Or I'll never eat all that. So I don't know how you eat breakfast. I could never eat breakfast.
Yeah.
I don't know how you manage to eat so much every single day.
Should you be eating that?
Yeah. And
I get that all the time as a nutritionist.
I didn't think you'd eat stuff like that. Or I bet you eat really clean. How much do you eat every day? What? How much do you... And it's just like, just stop asking.
Oh, yeah.
And I've had to have some very frank conversation. I've actually just ended up saying to people, a girl messaged me on Instagram saying, I've noticed you've lost a lot of weight. How did you do it? You look absolutely... And I went, I'm actually relapsing in an eating disorder at the moment. So to which the reply was, oh, same. I struggled for this long, blah, 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 blah. To which my reply was, well, then you should know better, shouldn't you?
Yeah. It's unfortunate, Emily, isn't it? Because we fall back into patterns that serve us, don't we? As you said, like, especially when it's patterns of control and their safety behaviors. And that was the biggest thing that I learned, was that, we do these things because they make us feel safe and they do serve a purpose. And until we accept that, we can't move on from them, because otherwise we wouldn't do them. Right. And that's the thing. And I think actually for you, Emily, you said that you were wondering about the confidence of moving forward from this and coming out with this story and things like that. And hopefully, this podcast can be part of that story for you, particularly as this will come out sort of this Friday. And it sounds like, you're out of hospital, you're back at home, and, you're ready to kind of embark this new life. And it will be difficult, of course, but you have people around you, clearly still a coach and friends and family and support that you have there to lean on. And, I just thank you for coming on and being so honest about things, because I know that it must be very difficult for you.
I think the more transparency we can have about things like this, the more we can help people.
100%.
And that is the beauty of social media, is it has allowed very isolated people to have people they can reach out to and affiliate themselves with or recognize with, and to try and gain help in an otherwise very isolating world, especially through what we've gone through with isolations and pandemics and things. So
yeah, absolutely.
If there's anything good to come out of what's happened, it's that I'm going to have the power to use my ability to talk to people to help people.
Well, yeah, that's why I went from performing into coaching as well. But thank you so much for your time. You said that you've got a blog, things like that. Where can people find more, follow your journey?
I'm in the process of rebuilding my website at the moment, which is really exciting. Doing it all by myself, so it's a bit laborious. But otherwise, my Instagram is always the best place to find out anything about me. That's at Emelye Woo. And then if it's coaching, it's at coach_Emelye Woo. And then my website will be Emelye Woo Fitness.
Cool. Well, I'll make sure I include those in the notes of the podcast. Thanks again for your time.
So good to see you.